ya watu wote. Hiyo miundombinu ya barabara kama nilivyosema ni ya dunia nzima. Everyone may use that road wakati wowote ule ambao anaweza kuwa yuko hapa, wawe wageni, wawe sisi wa humu ndani. Kwa hiyo watu wote wawe majirani zetu wanaotoka huko Zambia, Rwanda, Burundi, wapi DRC, basi wathamini kwamba hizi ndo barabara nazo wanazitumia, waweze kufika kwao, wachukue mzigo ili maisha yaendelee.
TANROADS imekuwa ikiendelea kusisitiza uwepo wa mizani bora ndani ya nchi. Ni mojawapo ya mikakati walionayo ili kuhakikisha barabara zinazojengwa kwa gharama kubwa zinadumu na kuwa magari yanayopita katika barabara na uzito unaotakiwa. Tukutane wakati mwingine tena kwenye kipindi cha TANROADS.
TANROADS.
Hello and a warm welcome to TBC News. Our top stories tonight. Former Foreign Minister and diplomat Bernard Membe dies at 69. Major reforms in education sector nears. Good evening, I am Nasa Kingo. Just a reminder, you can also follow us live via our YouTube channel, TBC Online, and also get all the latest news through our Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter pages at TBC Online. Former Minister for Foreign Affairs Bernard Membe has died at age of 69 at the Kairuki Hospital in Dar es Salaam, where he was admitted. Membe, who was also Member of Parliament for Mtama constituency from the year 2000 to 2015, served as the Minister for Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation from 2007 to 2015 under President Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete. Following his death, President Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan has sent condolence messages through her social media platform, saying she had received the news with profound sadness. Other leaders of the international community and diplomats, including the American ambassador to Tanzania, Michael Barrow, and the British ambassador to Tanzania, David Konkar, have sent their condolences through their social media platforms. Now let's take a look at Bernard Camillus Membe's political career as prepared and narrated by Apasia Ringo.
Started his political career in 2000, seeking his party's approval to be a member of parliament from Mtama constituency. With his charisma and political capabilities, Membe was given a chance to run for the post and was elected as the Mtama Member of Parliament at the age of 47. 5 years later, he was appointed by the former president, Dr. Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete, as the Deputy Minister for Internal Affairs from January 2006 to October 2006, and then as the Deputy Minister for Energy and Minerals, where he held the position to November 2007. In December 2007, Bernard Camillus Membe was appointed as the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, replacing Dr. Asha Rose Migiro. He remained in that position until the end of President Kikwete's term in 2015. In 2015, he decided to venture into the race as a presidential candidate through Chama cha Mapinduzi, CCM. His efforts could not bear fruits after CCM chose Dr. John Pombe Magufuli as the party's candidate in the 2015 general election. In July 2020, Bernard Camillus Membe officially joined ACT, claiming that he is an ordinary member but he is ready to serve the party at any level. Then later he was announced by the ACT party as the presidential candidate in the 2020 general election, which witnessed President Dr. John Pombe Magufuli being re-elected. On May 29, 2022, he returned to CCM for what he said was the end of his conflict with the party. Political circles describe Membe as one of the smart political leaders who spent most of his time serving the country in matters of diplomacy and international cooperation.
The government, through the Ministry of Education, Science and Technology, has completed the formulation of the Education Policy of 2014 publishment version of 2023 regarding education curricula, whereby from now primary education is expected to be up to 6th grade, while secondary education to be mandatory. Here is Ulua Muhammad with more details.
Tutajielekeza katika kufanya mapitio.
We will focus on reviewing the education policy of 2014 and making adjustments. We want our education to focus on providing education in terms of the country's environment and the labor market. That is the statement by the President, Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, when she called for major revolution in the education sector in the country to bring about changes that will be in line with current needs. Following the statement by the head of the state, the Ministry of Education, Science and Technology is here today in Dodoma to review the proposed new education policy 2014 version 2023.
Nachukua pia nafasi hii.
I also take this opportunity to thank all the education stakeholders who came to participate in this historic conference in our country.
We started our work in April last year, and we have talked to many stakeholders and held many conferences. The opinion that you have given us as a member of parliament is to ensure that the government has taken it and acted on it.
Representing the President, Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, the Minister of Education, Science and Technology, Professor Adolf Mkenda, explains the improvements that have been made in the new education policy.
Tunapendekeza elimu ya msingi.
We recommend that primary education be for 6 years instead of 7 years, But then the recommendation says that the student must complete primary education as well as O-level, so the student will leave school after completing Form 4.
Kwa hiyo mwanafunzi atatoka shule baada ya kumaliza tu Form 4.
Furthermore, Minister Mkenda has gone further, mentioning changes in the teachers' employment system.
Namna ya kupata na kuajiri walimu.
The issue of how to find and hire teachers is in the new vision of the policy, but let me assure the teachers at work that all the changes will not affect those currently employed. What we'll do is to increase efforts to be able to learn and develop themselves, but their employment is protected until they retire.
Lakini ajira yao inalindwa mpaka watakapostaafu.
The new education policy will be further discussed with various stakeholders until the 31st of this month, and then the government will start other implementation measures.
Minister of Finance and Planning, Dr. Mwigulu Nchemba, urges the East African Community member countries to conduct a study to outline economic integration setbacks which hinder success for the East African Monetary Union Protocol targeting single currency adoption. Apasia Ringo has more details.
Dr. Nchemba made the call during the 15th meeting of the Sectoral Council of Ministers of Finance and Economy of the East African Community held in Arusha, where, among other things, the meeting received and discussed various resolutions from the previous meeting.
The prospect is, again, in few countries, maybe in Tanzania, where we will start benefiting from gas and the other natural resources. Maybe for Uganda, when they will start benefiting of oil in the near future. And then again, we need a minimum partner state to have attained. And the economies do change, you never know. So the way I see, it's like a target set which will never be attained. That is why I was saying we better review, conduct a study and review.
The recommendations made by the minister have been supported by the Ministers of Finance and Economy of Kenya, Rwanda and Burundi, as well as the representatives of the Ministers of Finance of South Sudan and Uganda, asserting that due to the fact that criteria being set for a long time and not being met, it means that there is a need for a proper review.
So there has been a structural shift, so I support the whole idea of let's go back into a study that tells us, can you inform us in terms of where we are, other than talk about a target that we don't seem to achieve. In fact, we are all running away from it.
Direct the EAC Secretariat to facilitate a study on EAC macroeconomic convergence criteria, particularly the validity of the overall fiscal deficit, that's one, as well as the public debt target of 50% of GDP.
So we can broaden the study to look at a little bit wider scope, which includes debt, which includes grants. Because when you look at the trends of how our economies are being financed, there is a shift already. The mix between domestic, foreign borrowing, grants coming in. So if we need to do a decent job that will really speak to our realities today and tomorrow.
Dr. Nchemba used the opportunity to invite the Ministers of Finance and Economy of the East African Community, as well as persuading their heads of state to participate in the African Heads of State Human Capital Development Summit that will be held in Dar es Salaam, July 2023.
Minister of Health, Umi Mwale, says for the year 2022 alone, approximately 35 million people have received health services, where 87% of them received treatment in district hospitals, health centers and clinics. The minister was addressing the parliament for the approval of her ministry's budget of 1.24 trillion Tanzanian shillings for the financial year 2023-2024, which targets to increase specialist services and purchase of medical equipment in 279 health centers in the country. Here is a report by Linus Gamarua, read by Lulua Mohammed.
Health sector is one of the key sectors in the country and plays a crucial part in the development of the country. This is the main reason the government continues to spend trillions of money in the sector by building hospitals, health centers, and investing in specialist services, making the country the center of specialist treatment in East and Central Africa. Health Minister Umi Mwalimu is addressing the parliament for approval of her ministry's budget of 1.24 trillion Tanzania shillings for the financial year 2023-2024.
Jumla ya fedha zote.
I request for 1 trillion shillings, 235,316,516,000 shillings be approved by the honorable members of parliament.
510,016.
The Minister Umi also highlighted on the challenges facing the National Health Insurance Fund.
Tumenunua mashine za kisasa za MRI 6.
We have bought modern MRI machines which are worth 4.5 billion Tanzanian shillings. We have as well bought 32 new CT scans and 24 have started operating. Benjamin Mkapa Hospital has started a bone marrow transplant service for children with sickle cell, and they have already done it to 3 children since January. The cost of doing this transplant for one child is about 58 billion Tanzanian shillings. The hospital has donated and paid it for the patients.
Wakawalipia wagonjwa hao.
The Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Musa Azanzungu, says that despite the good work done by the health sector in the country, the issue of cost needs to be reviewed.
Dialysis, MRI. Dialysis and MRI tests have been a difficult procedure. The insurance fund is highly affected because it has to cover the cost of this testing. In countries like India, the cost of dialysis test is $28, including its equipment. Try to see how other countries are doing so that we can reduce the cost of this testing.
The parliamentarians' contributions focused on increasing the ministry's budget, National Insurance Fund, and the shortage of health professionals.
We only allocate 2.8% of our budget to health service. We should at least set aside 15% of the country's budget to serve health issues.
Na umekuwa ni mtindo wa kawaida mwananchi hata kitu kidogo tu.
It has become a common practice where a citizen has a minor health condition, he or she is told to take medicine at the pharmacy. I ask you to do an investigation because there are places where medicine are being dispensed instead of going to the hospital where this private shop owner get them.
The need for staff in our clinics throughout Tanzania is 100,646, but the ones available are 30,625.
The parliament continues with its budget sessions in Dodoma.
Minister for Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Dr. Stergomena Tax, calls on investors and partners to continue to invest in Tanzania, following measures taken by the government to improve the environment for investments. She made the call while addressing audience who attended an event to celebrate the coronation of King Charles III and Queen Camilla in Dar es Salaam, the occasion that was attended also by UK's Special Trade Envoy to Tanzania, Lord John Wanley.
I've been calling investors and partners to continue partnering with us, but also to take advantage of the improved business environment. Since you're here and you represent the business community, please take back with you the good news that the environment is very friendly and conducive for all kinds of business.
The British High Commissioner to Tanzania, David Konkar, once again reiterated the Britain's commitment to deepen mutual cooperation between Tanzania and the UK in the areas of trade and investments.
Well, UK is already the second largest cumulative investor in Tanzania. You know, UK invested businesses employ hundreds of thousands of people here and pay a big portion of the taxes to the government. We want to build on that for the future. So the trade envoy is here and he's looking out for the businesses here that might want to export to the UK to take advantage of really exceptionally good trading terms that will be coming online for Tanzania and other developing countries this year.
Tanzania and UK have historical bilateral relations that goes beyond politics, and the event was organized by the British Embassy in Tanzania to honor the coronation of King Charles III and Queen Camilla that took place on 6th May at Westminster Abbey in London. The Director General of Tanzania Fisheries Research Institute, Ismail Kimirai, says Tanzania loses a quality of fishing products by 30 to 40% after harvest due to the absence of modern technologies. He made the observation during a special meeting involving fishing stakeholders that aims at exploring strategies using modern methods to reduce the loss of quality of fishing products. Rehema Sebabili reports.
The purpose of the meeting, which includes donors and stakeholders, is to offer a strategy using contemporary techniques to lessen the loss of quality of fishing goods. Tanzania intends to use technology for storage and drying of the products before it reaches the consumers.
Losing between 30 and 40% of all the fish that is harvested is a big loss. That could have contributed to the food security of the country, and of course could also contribute to export earnings. And so this assessment and the strategy has come at the right time while we are winding up the 5 years development plan of the government, the third phase 5-year development plan that ends 2025-2026. We hope that this strategy will put in place and, of course, impact the reduction in food waste and food loss and waste.
The food loss and waste, you will correct me, you experts in this area, that women work more in the processing or the post-harvest part, and therefore addressing food loss and waste also expands employment for women in this segment, value chain segment of various value chains.
For his part, the Norwegian ambassador to Tanzania said that Norway will continue to be Tanzania's partner in improving the fishing industry in the country.
Yeah, so food loss is a serious problem. I think roughly 30 to 40% of all the food production goes to waste. So managing that is very important for any country, and also for Tanzania. And you know, Norway has been an important partner with Tanzania for years in the fisheries sector. So that's where we've been together with the FAO looking at strategies to reduce food waste. So.
According to studies, Tanzania loses 30 to 40% of quality of its fishing products after harvest. Reporting from Dar es Salaam, Rehema Sebabili, TBC News.
Thank you very much, Rehema Sebabili, for that report. More than 500 project management professionals have been trained by Hebo Consult to manage projects professionally in the country. The statement was made by the director of Hebo Consult, Ms. Bula Hekeno, during signing of an agreement with Project Management Institute PMI Tanzania chapter to provide project management training in the country.
Just as the rest of the world, Tanzania's public and private sector is also driven by projects, and the demand for skilled project professionals is growing every year. With over $228 billion worth of projects in Africa within the next 5 years, 40% of these are happening in East Africa and 20% in Tanzania. It is evident that our country is witnessing a surge in the development projects. This growth is attributed to projects in infrastructure, construction, as the main projects that are actually supporting the economic development of our country, in the energy sector, technology, agriculture, as well as development. This growing demand highlights the importance of upskilling project professionals to ensure that our national projects are executed efficiently and effectively as well.
The president of PMI Tanzania chapter, Attorney Harry Mbiro, says the collaboration with Hebo Consult will strengthen the nation's commitment to equip Tanzanian experts with strategic project management skills for economic development.
Collaboration is built upon a shared understanding of the vital role project management plays in our nation's development. The government of the United Republic of Tanzania, under the steadfast leadership of Her Excellency President Samia Suluhu Hassan, has been working tirelessly to ensure economic sustainability and growth. At the center of it, there are massive development projects that the government is actually carrying. We recognize our responsibility to support these efforts by equipping professionals with the skills and knowledge necessary to successfully execute projects across various sectors.
Before we wind up our local news tonight, let us now have a look at today's exchange rates according to Bank of Tanzania BOT. Don't miss TBC News every weekday to know all the latest in exchange rates. Time now for all the latest in international news. And here is international news with Lulua Muhammad.
The military parties in Sudan signed an agreement in Saudi Arabia to clear corridors for trapped civilians to leave the fighting zones while allowing humanitarian aid to enter. That declaration of principle contains no mention of a truce or ceasefire after nearly a month of fighting that has left more than 750 dead, 5,000 wounded, and more than 900,000 displaced and refugees. At the end of 6 days of negotiations, emissaries from the army of General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces RSF of General Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo signed the Jeddah Declaration for the Protection of Civilians in Sudan. For the past 4 weeks, millions of Sudanese, mainly in Khartoum and Darfur in western Chad, have been barricaded in their homes, surviving in sweltering heat without running water or electricity for fear of going outside and being mowed down by a stray bullet. The two sides also pledged to quickly allow and facilitate the passage of humanitarian aid, as well as the passage of humanitarians into and within the country. At least 2 Palestinians have been killed and several others wounded on the 4th consecutive day of Israel bombardment on the Gaza Strip in the Palestinian Authority. According to local media in the Gaza City, the total number of Palestinians killed in this week's bombardment is at least 33, including several children, with more than 110 also wounded. One of the people killed in Friday's air raid on an apartment was a senior leader of Palestinian Islamic Jihad group. Also, a bombardment of rockets has reached an area close to Jerusalem for the first time in 4 days of fighting between Israel and militants in Gaza. Local media in Israel say a rocket from Gaza landed near the Jewish settlement of Bat Ayin in the occupied West Bank south of Jerusalem. No injuries were reported. And Pakistan's former Prime Minister Imran Khan has been granted a 2 weeks bail by Islamabad High Court in a graft case. Khan had earlier arrived in court after the Supreme Court ruled his arrest earlier this week unlawful. Speaking during Friday's hearing, Chief Justice Umar Atta Bandial said the arrest was unlawful because it took place on court premises. On his side, the former Prime Minister Imran Khan has said he doesn't know what exactly happening in Pakistan because the army arrested him as if he is a terrorist and he's not responsible for the reactions. According to media reports, Khan is still waiting to receive written orders from the court, after which he is expected to return to Zaman Park, his Lahore residence. The court also ordered he could not be arrested on any charges filed after last Tuesday until 17 May. The 70-year-old who was arrested on Tuesday as he arrived at a courthouse in Islamabad pleaded not guilty to the charges when a judge formally indicted him with corruption for the first time in the dozens of cases he faces.